Canada was one of those countries that took action quite earlier on with Israel, especially in relation to the arms embargo. Although Canada had an excellent relationship with Israel, very close ties. However, things quickly started to spiral and get out of control. Despite the fact that Canada isn't in the top 3 or even 5 of the arms suppliers to Israel, this decision at the time was quite significant. But now there's something more dangerous happening, and in Israel, they're panicking over it. So we had this report here in the Israeli Ynet: uproar in Canada, Israeli soldiers suspected of crimes against humanity. According to this report, escalation in relations. For the first time, the Canadian government is investigating the involvement of Canadian citizens in crimes against humanity allegedly committed during their service in the IDF in the war in Gaza. The authorities have not published anything about the investigation, which was opened in 2024 and has now been revealed to the local Toronto Star. Concern among the Israeli community: Canada is becoming more hostile every day. There are several things that are very interesting in this move coming from Canada. Firstly, you're talking about a move coming from the Canadian authorities. We're not talking about legal firms or certain movements that go against Israel and use the Canadian law, for example, take certain actions, as the case is in multiple other countries. This is a Canadian government move. The fact that they've hidden this, and this has been ongoing since 2024, shows you that they actually want to take action. The other very important point in this is that these moves are against Canadian nationals, Canadian Israelis who have served in the Israeli army. They're not just Israelis who are going to visit Canada. No, they were in Canada. They went to Israel to serve in the genocide, and then they went back to Canada. So from a Canadian perspective, you're talking about a situation where they don't want to create a safe haven for war criminals. At least that's the talk that's coming from the authorities in Canada. But the criticism and the statements that are coming from Israelis who are in Canada are very interesting. For example, one of them said it's the second before they file arrest warrants against war criminals. Canadian children, they're saying, they're calling the IDF terrorists Canadian children, who were or are still in the army, will be prosecuted upon their return to Canada. This is so serious, friends. There are lawyers who are already handling this, but the Gazans who came here are not being investigated. Another Israeli was saying, you're not reading between the lines. The very fact that this is happening is the mother of all anti-Semitism, of course. Another person who commented in this group designated for this problem that's happening there, it's making Israelis think twice about sending children to serve in Israel as lone soldiers. Canada is becoming more and more hostile to us every day. They completely, of course, delusional. However, from a Canadian perspective, the Canadian authorities are actually doing the right thing. They're not providing a safe haven for people who went out and murdered and slaughtered children and went back. Anyone who even served, the fact that you actually served in a genocidal terror army run by a wanted war criminal, that's enough of a reason for you to be arrested and investigated. And at least there are more moves coming from authorities in some Western countries like Canada. And these are very important because these moves create a deterrence against these war crimes, a deterrence against potential future war crimes. For example, the threat with sanctions that some of the European countries took, and the joint statement that happened between Britain, France, and Canada just a couple of weeks back. In Israel, they said it could be basically a death sentence to the state of Israel. It could be the elimination of the state of Israel, the destruction. The Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said. That shows you that these countries have a lot of leverage, they have a lot of power, and they have a lot of say. And they also have a lot of complicity too. Because if they know that any certain economic action or sanctions or legal action even, and we're still not talking about military intervention, by the way, because there have been massive millions of people, global social media campaigns calling for military intervention to stop the genocide. But even if we're not talking about that, we're just talking about the legal aspect and the economic aspect, the sanctions aspect, you can do a lot to prevent what's happening. Because again, the people in Gaza, they don't have time. Every minute, people die there. People get killed, slaughtered in this genocide. So the more time goes by without action, the more people get killed. The people have no time to wait. And any country that has any sort of authority, any sort of power to make a move must make a move. And even if these moves begin slowly and then they start to pick up the pace, it's not a problem, but start making a move. And the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about is this girl here, Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg has been a global hero when she was calling for, things to do with climate change and saving the planet. Everywhere in the United Nations, global networks speaking to the girl, a hero, all of that. The moment she started to talk about Gaza, all of a sudden she became this little devil child. What happened? So if you talk about saving plants, fine, saving people, no, that's not okay. Anyway, the girl is going on a flotilla to break the siege in Gaza, taking a risk. Israel targeted a ship, the flotilla ship in Malta several weeks back. They targeted the previous flotilla back in 2009. Many were killed too. But now she is saying that, no, we need to take this action. Even if there's a risk, we need to go in this flotilla and try and help as much as possible. The moment that that declaration is made, what happens? Pro-Israel figures threaten to kill Greta Thunberg over Gaza. Yeah, you heard that right. Kill the girl. A little girl trying to do good for humanity, trying to say stop genocide, stop killing people. It's very, very basic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually quite honorable. It's the normal thing that any human being would do. Anyway, Lindsey Graham, hope Greta and her friends can swim. Lindsey Graham. Have any of you heard about the case of him with that male prostitute case? What happened with that? He's still talking. Will Chamberlain. Greta's on her way to Gaza. The Israelis could do the funniest thing. Look at these people. They're basically they're calling for Israel to take action. Arsen Ostrovsky. Oh, look, the little jihadi Greta Thunberg. The jihadi Greta Thunberg is trying to get into Gaza to show solidarity with the Hamas. Of course. It would be so sad if something were to happen to her flotilla. These people are outright calling for Israel. This is an indirect call to kill the girl. Ladies and gentlemen, they're probably preparing the public opinion that something might happen so that people can take it easy. You know how these people operate. They're out of their minds. Only because she's taking action to save the people of Gaza. What kind of world do we live in? And again, she was a hero. She was amazing. But when she started to talk about Gaza, everything flipped. And the final interesting thing that I wanted to talk to you about is, guys, none other than Matthew Miller. Matthew Miller, the former spokesperson of the United States State Department. Man was out there day and night, speaking so much. All of a sudden, he has no doubt that Israel is committing war crimes in Gaza. So let's have a look at what he said now and what he used to say before.
I think it is without a doubt true that Israel has committed war crimes. You wouldn't have said that at the podium. Yeah, look at bureaus that look at facts, apply them to.
So man doesn't have a doubt that Israel committed war. He's still shy. Still didn't say that they committed genocide, but he's definite that they committed war crimes. Now let's listen to what he had to say before.
To international law and make assessments. Those assessments are ongoing, and we have not yet at this time concluded that Israel has violated international humanitarian law, but we have ongoing assessments across a number of different fronts.
So all these organizations are just wrong. They just see the law differently.
I'm telling you that we have ongoing
just
assessments and we have not yet reached that conclusion. Failed to implement all of the things that we recommend in that letter. Now, that said, we are not at the end of the 30-day period,
Okay,
and we
so
are
it's a
we are
fail,
in
but
cover.
you're not ready to give them
It's
an
not the
F.
end. It's not the end of the semester. You don't hand out grades in the
Okay,
middle.
well,
in the
I
middle.
Gives you the right to lecture other countries on their moral.
So if you have a policy question for me, I'm happy to take it. If you want to give a speech,
No, but
there are
I
plenty
mean-
of places in Washington where you can give a speech.
Yeah, but people are sick of the bullshit in here. I mean, like, it is a
Okay.
genocide.
I'm gonna
You
go on
are
to- I'm gonna
abetting
go on to
it,
another question.
and you
Go
are.
ahead.
And he goes on. I mean, you probably heard the man when he was talking and legitimizing the genocide when he was in the Biden administration. But all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, the man leaves the administration, has this interview. All of a sudden, they're committing war crimes. What are they actually thinking? So, what are the people who are in power now actually thinking? Are they also believing that it's a genocide and these are war crimes, but also hiding it because they're in their position? This is a blatant example of how these people are just actors, going there on an act because that's their job, to legitimize a genocide. And when it's no longer in their interest, or that's oh yeah, they're actually committing war crimes and they are doing bad stuff. Who else then in the current authorities thinks the same thing as Matthew Miller and is not really mentioning anything?